for about 25 years, taught at Dalhousie a design course, using Lunenburg as a vehicle so that the students of architecture could learn about being good architectural citizens and understand how to make contemporary insertions into traditional heritage settings. And so after 25 years of teaching about it, I thought it was time to put our money where our mouth is and prove that you could do it by doing an infill project in the center of the UNESCO World Heritage District of Lunenburg. For a long time, since Lunenburg was made a UNESCO World Heritage Site, there's been very little in the way of development in the old town. And I know from other UNESCO World Heritage towns around the world that it's often the kiss of death, really, to be declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and often development doesn't happen. So we thought it was important to show that it can happen and to work through the process and make a kind of model project out of it. So that's really like us acting as developer and architect. Really, it's about the town and showing that something good can happen in the town that's contemporary and respectful at the same time of the heritage of the town. So officially, Lunenburg was founded in the mid-1700s. But of course, we all know that Lunenburg existed under other names as an Acadian settlement and as a Mi'kmaq settlement for millennia, actually. But the heritage that we see in Lunenburg today mostly comes from the foreign Protestants who came here in the mid-1700s. And they brought a kind of Hanseatic League architecture with them, which is the kind of commercial federation that was around the Baltic. And so this part of Lunenburg, where B2 Lofts exists, is the most like those Hansa towns, those Hanseatic League towns in its architecture. They're characterized by gables or gambrel roof buildings that face the harbor. So this building finds itself amongst a whole lot of gambrel roofed Hansa-like buildings. And so we decided to add one more. So the context said that the gambrel roof model was the context, and we should do the right thing and do some more of it. I don't particularly like gambrel roofs or Dutch gables, but it's not about what I like or don't like. As an architect, you have to go with what's the right thing to do in the context. This particular part of Lunenburg is on the scene between two kinds of contexts. On the waterfront side, it's the traditional waterfront industrial architecture, big sheds. And on the street above, that is also the address of the project. The project goes between the two streets. It's a kind of mercantile architecture with storefronts that are typically 6-pane windows that are commercial storefronts. So we were responding really to two kinds of architectural contexts, the kind of mercantile and the industrial, which gave us lots of fodder, for design, because we had two traditions that we could blend in the project. Big sliding barn doors, of course, are an industrial and a mercantile feature. And we made it modern by actually chronically looking back at the big industrial barn doors and doing big ones like that. So it's modern and contextual at the same time. There were lots of debates with the heritage people about symmetry, whether there should be symmetry, and I said, well, if you can find a symmetrical building in Lunenburg, tell me about it, because when you look closely at it, they're not symmetrical. So this building is very dynamic in its pinwheeling window placement and pop scale openings, whereas the building has overall symmetry. The fenestration of the building is very asymmetrical and dynamic. And this is what makes it modern as well as traditional, ironically, in the sense of that more relaxed industrial architecture. The materials, of course, are traditional. It was very tricky because, you know, the building code says we should have non-combustible sidewalls on the building. The heritage guidelines suggest that it should be wood siding. So what we had to do in the end, at great cost to us as developers really, was to use wood siding but have deluge sprinkling on the outside of the building. We had to sprinkler the outside of the building to do the right thing by the heritage and by the building code at the same time. A major component of the design of E2 lofts, of course, is the fenestration, the windows. It's important to give a shout out to Austin Parsons Lumber, who worked with us very closely in the fabrication of all these custom windows, because these windows had to meet current building code requirements and have the vertical proportions required by the UNESCO regulations and so on. So it's a kind of modern window made in a true divided traditional way by a very skilled window company. Yeah, my wife Marilyn and I have often played amateur developer and done these kinds of infill projects in historic context, in particular in Halifax, in the old north end of Halifax. I think it's important as an architect to practice what you preach, to live your ideals and put a kind of utopian agenda forward, to be what you believe in. And our firm has always done that. And these little forays into developer role have kind of been a major part of that. Doing what you believe in doing. For 10 years, I was a member of the design panel at the National Capital Commission in Ottawa. So we're used to being on the other side of the table here. Used to being reviewing projects in sensitive historic contexts from the point of view of the public oversight. So it was relatively easy for me to put myself in the position of the planners and heritage planners here in Lunenburg, working with Bill Plaskett, who worked on the initial regulations for heritage for Lunenburg, and now his follower is now Arthur McDonald, who turns out to be having been an architectural student of mine some 35 years ago. So yeah, architect, developer, professor, all get kind of blurred together.